Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X-Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled Patient-Level Data Sharing in Clinical Research. My name is Diane, and I will be your X-Talks host for today. And today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and this presentation includes a Q&A session with our speakers. This webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved, so please feel free to submit questions and comments you may have for our speakers throughout the presentation, and you can do so by using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. This chat box is located on the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and if you require any other assistance, please contact me at any time by sending a message using this chat panel. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode, and please note that this event will be recorded and made available for future download. At this point, I would like to thank IDDI, who helped develop the content for this presentation. International Drug Development Institute is an expert center in biostatistical and integrated e-clinical services for pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies in several disease areas, including oncology and ophthalmology. IDDI optimizes the clinical development of drugs, biologics, and devices thanks to proven statistical expertise and operational excellence. Founded in 1991, IDDI has offices in Belgium, Boston, Raleigh, and San Francisco. And now I would like to introduce our first speaker for today's event, Mark Boyce. Mark holds a Doctor of Science in Biostatistics from the Harvard School of Public Health in Boston. He is the founder of IDDI and CluePoints, two biostatistical service organizations based in the US and Europe. He served on the first independent review panel for clinicalstudyDataRequest.com. And our second speaker is Frank Rockhold. Frank is Senior Vice President, Safety and Pharmacovigilance at GlaxoSmithKline and Professor of Biostatistics and Bioinformatics at Duke University. He holds a PhD in biostatistics from the Medical College of Virginia, and he has been a leader in promoting data disclosure and transparency in clinical research. He has chaired the GSK Operations and Governance Board for Data Disclosure, which covers disclosure of protocols, clinical trial summaries, data reports, as well as individual patient-level data. And now, without further ado, I would like to hand over the mic to our first presenter, Mark. And Mark, you may begin when you are ready.
Welcome, everybody, to this webinar. This is the agenda for the webinar. Frank and I will take turns, and I will start and provide some background information on patient-level data sharing. Then Frank will take over and discuss the pharma initiative, which was led by GlaxoSmithKline a couple of years ago. And I was privileged to be on the independent review panel for the GlaxoSmithKline initiative, which was then expanded to other companies. And I am going to report on my 2 years of experience on this panel. And then Frank will conclude by discussing some benefits and challenges of data sharing. So as a way of background, in the old days, and old days meaning up to 5 years ago or so, clinical trial data were proprietary to the sponsors of the trials, and there was no way in which anybody could have access to these data unless the sponsor of the trial allowed such access to be made. The data were obviously shared with regulatory agencies as part of the drug approval process, but in the majority of cases, no one else had access to the data besides the sponsor and the agency. Now, of course, this secrecy of the data generated a climate of suspicion and distrust. And whenever there was an issue, for example, a suspicion that a drug created a safety problem, or maybe the efficacy of the drug was not as large in a general population as was claimed in the registration package, of course, there was no way for anybody to check the veracity of these claims. And so this was very counterproductive. As a partial response to this data secrecy, some journals about 10 years ago took a bold step, and JAMA, among others, took the step of asking the people who submitted papers, not only to report their conflicts of interest, which was, of course, part of the submission process, but also to provide access to the data so that someone else could check the analyses that had been done of these data and sort of confirm independently that the publication was accurate and was a fair reflection of what the data contained. Now, well, this policy, even though it was well intended, created a furor, especially in the statistical community, because in fact JAMA requested that data be made available for industry-sponsored studies that would then have been to be checked by an academic group, but not the other way around. And obviously that wasn't a fair policy, because there is no reason to believe that pharma-sponsored studies are in any way more biased than academic studies. And so that policy